At this time, we'll call a regular meeting of the New Ulm City Council for February 16, 2016, 5 p.m. to order. First item on the agenda is your consent agenda items. What's your wishes?
I'll move it.
Second?
We got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items. Any discussion on any? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll go to item 2A, conduct a public hearing to consider a resolution on the proposed 2016 MAS improvement projects. Mr. Kaler?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was going to have Assistant City Engineer, Mr. Stadheim, put up a small little map, and I can just point out the improvements that we're proposing as part of this project. It was initially included in the capital improvement plan that the City Council reviewed in December. It's basically 3 blocks of German Street from 16th South to 19th South. For those familiar with the area, it's about the only segment of gravel roadway on German Street. It's down by Applebee's in that particular area. That segment of German Street is on our state aid system, so we can utilize some gas tax money that we receive back from the state. We're planning on constructing roadway improvements for those 3 blocks. It's kind of hard to see, but from the left, is that 16th, Joe? The first block, we're recommending sidewalk on both sides of the street. As we move to the south, there's a recreational trail on the east side in existence, so we will leave that in place and put sidewalk from 17th to 19th on the west side as part of the project, showing some trees and street lighting as well. And then because it's a state aid system project, we generally don't add any side streets, but in this particular case, we're adding 17th South Street, which has got a steep grade from German Street, from Minnesota Street down to German Street, about 10%. And if we would construct German Street without doing the curb and gutter and extending the storm sewer up to that location, we'd have storm water and gravel washing down, and actually it washes over into the New Ulm Steel and Recycling Yard. In this case, because we're putting curb and gutter on our segment on German Street, we'll be able to channel that water into our storm sewer and help them out as well with their issues with any storm sewer runoff. So with that, unless you have any questions, we could open it up for the public hearing.
All right, this public hearing, anybody have any comments or anything? First one would be German Street from 16th South to 19th South Street.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Is there someone here? Okay.
I just have a few questions I thought.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Deb Lunenberg. Address 33 Lincoln Lane. With this project going on, a lot of this is going to fall on me and my taxes and the assessment. So I have a few questions. And like I said, Mr. Kaler answered, quite a few of them for me and his assistant. And I know I talked to them, and I talked to Mr. Gremitz, and you're doing the sidewalks on that side street, which is, I believe, 16th?
17th South as well, yes.
Okay, 17th, because of the water flow. And I know I brought this up, and I was given answers, but I still have a concern. And that is by not doing the rest of 19th Street. I know you had commented that there are going to be outlets or whatever for the water. But today when I left work, the low spot between Randy's, and I think most people know where Randy lives, that little, and then with Josh's, that water right there today, and the snow hasn't even hardly melted, I would say would be 4 to 5 inches deep. And that's why I'm concerned about if all of this is being done, why this isn't going to be continued. I mean, not that we want to be assessed more money, but it's just the thing is, Josh is out of town, so, but that was his main concern.
As I mentioned earlier, and we discussed last week for approximately an hour, as one of the things we discussed, German Street is on our state aid system, and we generally don't add any side streets unless we feel there's a necessary reason to do so. It adds a lot of accounting procedures that frankly are onerous and I believe unnecessary if you don't have to go there. That
Okay.
particular roadway that you're speaking of, 19 South Street, has got a grade toward the east, and we do have a storm sewer pipe extended out of the intersection for future construction. So you're kind of set up. Right now, all the storm sewer on German Street flows to the east, basically from 16th to 19th, and you're taking that whole area to the west. With the new curb and gutter and storm sewer extension, it should greatly mitigate that storm sewer that gets into your property and your recycling yard. So, believe it or not, this should go a long way to helping alleviate that problem. We could, in the future, as I mentioned, order that in by city council resolution, or it could be done by a petition from the adjoining property owners. That's something we could look at in the future.
How many property owners are on that? Is it just you and Randy, or is there more?
Well, I'm still Randy, I own part of it,
Dollar
and then it would
store.
be behind General Dollar.
Oh, mhm, okay.
So is there any way that road can be built up, or is that's going to be a whole new project?
It wouldn't be part of this project. It needs to be part of the city engineer's capital improvement plan that was initially considered back in December and then ordered in through the public hearing process. So it wouldn't be part of this project.
Okay, so then on German, I noticed on part of my property, is there water into any of those lots on the west side on German?
There is no sanitary sewer or water into the properties that you own on the west side, and as we discussed, that's one of the issues that each property owner is going to have to decide whether or not to extend sanitary sewer and services as part of the project and be specially assessed for the cost of those.
Okay,
If
because
you don't-
there
if you-
was a
go ahead.
fire hydrant.
Yes, there's a water main in the street, but there's no end services from the main. Typically, there's a hydrant on each or every
Okay.
other corner.
But
There's
it's
no
not,
services.
it's not in to any of
No.
the properties, it's just sitting there. So would that be on what side of the sidewalk, the fire hydrant? Is it on the toward
It's
the
between the sidewalk and the back of curb generally.
Okay, so it's not on the boulevard.
It's in the boulevard between the sidewalk and the back of curb. I define that as the boulevard.
Okay. I guess I don't have any more questions.
Okay?
It's just, like I said, mainly was at 19 South, and do you know when they project starting on this?
If the city
Approximately?
council orders in the project, then we'll finish, the plans are basically finished up. We'll order the ad for bids, and I think we were gonna open bids. Do you remember, Joe? What,
March 26th.
March, and then,
Okay.
you gotta wait for spring to roll around. So probably May in that particular time zone.
Okay.
June at the latest, I would hope. But we'll get a schedule and we'll
Okay.
share that with you, and as I mentioned, you'll have to decide what you want to do with your sanitary
Right.
sewer and services.
And is that always
Sewer and
done
water.
through assessments by the city, or is it done by private? Can you hire?
It can go either way. If you're going to construct them privately, you need to be responsible for the settlement and the roadway. So sometimes it's easier
Yeah.
just to
Have the
do it
city
on our project, and our contractor can get it
Yep.
compacted and
Okay.
not have to repair the street in the future.
Okay,
All right?
Thank you very
Thank
much.
Bev, you have a lot of property down there for this, so don't be afraid to
lot.
call the city when you got questions, and, I mean,
yeah,
that's- you're gonna have a pretty large assessment when this comes through, so
I
don't.
am, and I don't think it's city council, but I do have questions on my taxes now, because they just, some of the parcels don't really compare to some of the other parcels,
Okay.
but that would be through
County.
the county.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is one of my concerns is, how this is gonna be assessed.
And there's a process to take a look at that, so if you talk to the assessor's office, they
Okay.
can help you with that.
Okay, thank you.
And just, Mr. President, it's, what I remember is that typically we would require each parcel to add water. But because of the unique nature of
Right.
that particular property, we're giving the owners the option of deciding not to add water. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, and like I talked to, Mr. Kaler with bringing everything in, because I don't plan on selling those lots off as storage buildings. I've been called many, many times. I would like to have it sold as a part of New Ulm that brings, a little bit of industry, maybe some employees, instead of having all these little. So that's my thoughts in the future if it works, so
well, I'm sure you'll do the right thing.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, Counselor Webster is actually absolutely correct. The sewer and water end services are tricky down there. If people don't want them and they want to build a storage shed or 5 lots gets built into one, they could bring sewer and water in at their own dime privately later on. That's all we're saying. We'll do it now for you and get it out of the street. If you don't do it now, when you decide to, you'll have to come in and get an excavation permit from the city, pay for the cost yourself, and it'll be quite spendy at that time.
Okay, public hearing. Anybody else like to be heard? On 17 South Street, German Street to Minnesota, anybody? Seeing none? Entertain a resolution.
I will offer the resolution, waive the reading to close the public hearing and order in the improvement project and authorize the preparation of plans and specifications for both the German Street and 17th South.
Second.
We got a motion, a second off the resolution, waived reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none. Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz.
Yes.
Counselor Webster.
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 3A, consider motion approving the issuance of a lawful gambling permit for the Minnesota Valley Habitat for Humanity.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 3B, consider a motion approving the issuance of a temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for the Oak Hills Memorial Foundation.
I'll move that one too.
I'll,
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
These events are a lot of fun.
Yeah. This is for May 6, 2016. And it'll be held at the National Guard Armory. No more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 4A, oral presentation from a representative of the Public Law Center to discuss issues pertaining to the municipal regulation of e-cigarettes and tobacco, nicotine products, and instruct the city attorney, city staff to proceed with directed by the city council, as directed by the city council. Name and address, present.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council, mayor. My name is Scott Kelly. I'm a resident of Lakeville, Minnesota. I'm joined this evening by Darlene Huang of St. Paul, and we both represent the Public Health Law Center in St. Paul. And we're on in response to a formal request for our technical assistance in the updating of your tobacco regulations. Just a little background on our organization. The Public Health Law Center is a national nonprofit law and policy organization that helps health leaders, elected officials, and advocates use the law to advance public health. Founded in 2000, our organization is a leader in U.S. public health policy and a respected resource for many state, local, and national organizations. We're located at Mitchell Hamlin School of Law in St. Paul, and for more than 100 years, Mitchell Hamlin has been committed to advancing the law and on behalf of our communities. As an organization, we try to respond to something that can be a significant issue in regard to public health and just our lives more generally. The law can present both barriers and opportunities for public health initiatives. We provide tailored assistance that can make the difference between success and failure through legal research and analysis, through policy drafting assistance, We have many publications and resources to guide folks as they work on these issues themselves. We provide trainings. And while we generally do not provide direct legal representation or lobby with your formal request for assistance, we can directly help you draft the materials that you want. And as an aside, before I worked for the Public Health Law Center, I was an attorney with the League of Minnesota Cities. So I have a clear understanding of some of the things that you're dealing with as you work through these issues. Now, tobacco control, the retail environment is a significant area of interest and concern for tobacco control. Most products are bought in retail establishments, convenience stores, gas stations, grocery stores, and the like. Advertising and marketing is being more and more focused in that point of sale environment. It's a critical area of tobacco control, but it's a very complicated one as well. We like to have clear lines, clear separation. This is my responsibility, this is someone else's. But when it comes to point of sale, it's like a spider's web, if you will. Federal law, state law creates mandates that you have to respond to, that you choose to respond to when the city decided that it wanted to regulate tobacco retailers. There are things that have to be within your local regulations, and there are things that it's your option to do. Within the past 5 or 6 years, there have been significant changes to our state laws in regard to tobacco more generally, broadening out that terminology to respond to how products have been produced and sold. Where tobacco used to be things that you just smoked or you chewed, now they come in a variety of things that are inhaled, put on your tongue, and dissolved. And our laws have responded to that. They've broadened it out. They've provided more regulations in regard to the products that we use, that we use to use those products, pipes, rolling papers, things of that nature. And the law has changed to reflect and to respond to what has been a large concern and a growing area in the marketplace, electronic cigarettes. In 2014, our state laws were amended to essentially provide all the requirements that existed for tobacco and tobacco-related devices. They now apply to the term electronic delivery devices as well. It's a broad term meant to cover anything, regardless if it looks like a cigarette or a pipe or what have you. There are certain foundational pieces, certain provisions in state law that when you choose to license, they have to be a part of your ordinance. You're required to have broad, comprehensive definitions and regulations, things that do apply all to tobacco-related devices, electronic delivery devices, and nicotine or lobelia delivery products. Certain locations under state law are ineligible for a license, ineligible locations to sell tobacco or these other products and devices, and that needs to be reflected in your ordinance. There are restrictions, not a complete ban, but restrictions regarding how those products are offered for sale in those environments. For the most part, vendor or clerk assistance is required. You should be unable to just reach and grab something and take it and pay for it yourself. One of the newer things that was added in 2014 that is specific to e-cigarettes is a requirement that any of the liquids, usually more commonly referred to as juices or e-juices, they are required to be sold in child-resistant packaging. It's a responsibility for localities to enforce that, and one of the things that really needs to be done within a local regulation is to provide your enforcement, your inspection officers the ability to do that in a easy manner. You can't, through a visual inspection, know if anything is child resistant. So through the language of your ordinance, through the language of your regulations, you make it so that they can do that in a timely manner. And the biggest thing certainly is in regard to youth access. You're required to perform at least a minimum of 1 compliance check per year to make sure that your retailers aren't selling these products to a minor. And then finally, though it might not be specifically within your tobacco licensing ordinance, the fee that you impose is critical. The fee is the piece that is meant to drive your inspection and your enforcement programs. If the fee isn't significant enough to actually cover the costs that you have when you are doing the job as you're supposed to, you're essentially subsidizing the sale of tobacco. And the retailers in your community that do sell this, they generally don't need any assistance in that plan. It is a significant revenue source for them. So those are the things that really have to be within your ordinance. But like lots of things, you have lots of opportunities or options to add more. Some of these things that are seen to have the biggest potential impact on public health and to help more people never start and to help those who are trying to quit do so. State law gives you broad authority to do that. You are not preempted by our state law in adopting more restrictive, more significant regulations. And what are some of the options that you can consider adding to or amending within the regulations that you have? Well, you can deal with sampling. Sampling really can take one of two forms. It can be the free distribution of a product to someone, or it can be the actual use of a product within the store. While there are state and federal laws that deal with both, they are not comprehensive or they do not close either of those issues. In regard to the actual smoking or sampling of a product, state law, our Clean Indoor Air Act, it restricts that to certain facilities. Some go farther. In regard to e-cigarettes, there is no law that deals with sampling or the general use of them in most retail outlets. Those are two places where there are opportunities to do more. There's an opportunity to restrict or regulate the locations where tobacco is sold, be it in licensing caps to cap the total number of retailers that can be in your community, to proximity restrictions, perhaps a distance between a retailer and a youth facility, a school, or a daycare, something of that nature. Or restrictions, density restrictions based on the distance from one retailer to another. When they are in close proximity, that can have a significant impact on who chooses to use when they grow up, how enticing tobacco is. And you can certainly also make certain locations ineligible for a license. There's a great trend, not only in Minnesota, but across the country, to make places like pharmacies, places that we think of as places where you're supposed to get better, to not allow them to sell tobacco products. Advertising, there can be some advertising restrictions as well. This might not be within your tobacco ordinance itself. I assume that your city has some manner of a sign code within your zoning regulations. There can be some content neutral advertising restrictions placed within those materials as well. Something that limits the overall percentage of window front that can be covered through not just cigarette ads, but Coca-Cola, alcohol, whatever it might be. Costs can be increased as well. One of the reasons to increase costs is to make it less, to reduce the opportunity for minors to be able to purchase them products, either illegally themselves or through someone else. And there's been a great trend with doing that with cigars. In most stores, a single or even a package of cigars can be sold for less than $2, sometimes less than $1. Minimum product prices can be established for individual cigars or for packages of cigars. Minimum package sizes can be established, as well as with a combination of that, there can be regulations or restrictions on the ability to use couponing or discounting to get a price below that level. Flavored products, menthol in particular, are a significant barrier to public health. Menthol is a tool that is used to help people with the initiation process. The cool, minty taste can help someone get past the burn of that first cigarette or that first cigar. Growing number of communities, including Minneapolis and St. Paul, have regulated flavors. This has been done in different ways, and this is one that has been subject to challenge. And it's something that you have to be mindful of as you think of how you want to move forward in your community. Other communities have increased the age regarding the age to purchase tobacco. The state of Hawaii recently raised their age to 21. There's hundreds of communities across the country that have raised the age from 19 or to 21 to purchase. Other communities in Minnesota as well have raised the age to sell for a clerk, to try to impact the opportunity for peer pressure and things of that nature to help facilitate those illegal sales. There's opportunity to address what the appropriate consequence for these violations to help encourage retailers to comply with the laws that exist and the consequences for them. There can be increased administrative penalties, suspensions that go beyond what is required in state law, mandatory clerk training either on the front end as a condition of a license or as a consequence of a violation. Or potentially, what some communities have done is they will raise their license fees, sometimes significantly, but then they will provide a reduced amount for someone who does participate in, if you will, a good retailer type program. There's other things that can be done, requiring vendors to have those ID scanners or checks for their purchases, regulations or prohibitions on the sale of imitation tobacco products, things of that nature. There's lots of options. And I'm going to leave with you today, and I'll leave a copy in the back for public record as well, a couple of resources that show the variety of things that can be considered and some of the options within some of those varieties as well. We're really here to help you craft the regulation that's appropriate for your city. One that goes as far as you want it to go, one that's sound, defensible, and understandable. Good evening. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Yes, Mr. President. You talked about the ordinances regarding flavored nicotine products that were passed in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and you said that they have been challenged. Would you give me very specifically what's going on there? Are we in the trial court? Are we on appeal? What's happening there?
Neither of these cities in Minnesota that have adopted flavor restrictions have been challenged. Minneapolis's are in effect. St. Paul's are not going to go into effect until, I believe, April. They've been challenged in other cities, Providence, Rhode Island, and New York City specifically. The challenges that were made were based on the scope or the responsibility of the federal government. The federal government has a role in tobacco regulations, as does the state, and as do you, as well as your county. The arguments essentially were made that locality does not have the authority. They're preempted from regulations, in part because federal law exempts menthol flavors. In both of those cases, and in both of those, and it went to this upheld. The courts found that that was not the case. Minneapolis hasn't been challenged, and then their enforcement staff are in the process of beginning to check retailers to see what types of products they have and whether they are or not restricted. Minneapolis does not completely restrict the sale of flavored products. They exempt tobacco-only, adult-only retailers. They continue to allow those locations to sell flavored products. A different approach that has been taken by some communities, Chicago in particular, is to have proximity restrictions around schools, daycares, places of that. They kind of cut swaths out of their city. We can talk about this further if that's something that you're interested in, but that does bode a lot of enforcement and practical difficulties. Schools, charter schools in particular, popping up and how you're going to address things of that nature. It's not an approach that is generally recommended. If you want to provide if a community wants to provide an exception, a location where someone can purchase a tobacco product that does have a flavor, be it menthol or any other flavor, having an adult-only venue to do that is generally the course that people suggest they should go with.
When you've helped other cities, can you talk a bit about that process, what you've done and how you've worked with them to come up with what they want in their particular city? What's been the process?
Well, it's really, Counselor, it's really up to the community, depending on the internal capacity that they have. If it's their intention to draft some materials themselves to start with, to have us look it over and to provide comments where we might see some deficiencies based on the expertise, based on our just focus on the subject matter, we can do it that way. We can we have and can work hand in hand with staff and with council as they draft it themselves. It can work either way, and it can work well either way.
You can provide us sample policies that you've worked on and completed in other cities as well, I'm assuming, ordinances, and
Yes, we can.
so we could work off of something like that.
Certainly.
If you worked with cities our size, are we a little smaller or a little larger than, probably smaller, I would assume?
Well, some of the, if you will, the most progressive things usually germinate in the biggest of cities. But, if we look at Minnesota, you're not a small city. Most of the cities are under 1,000, most are under 500, and they're all working on these types of things. So your size necessarily isn't a detriment. Depending on what you propose, what you want to adopt, say if it is a flavored restriction, you do have to think about perhaps your capacity to enforce and defend something if such challenge were to come up. And that might be different for a city the size of New Ulm versus a city the size of Minneapolis or St. Paul that are self-insured, that have large internal staffs.
Right.
But your size shouldn't be really a barrier to this work or what you come up with.
Can you touch base maybe a little bit like on public places or city parks and, as far as tobacco, I read a little bit, with some cities trying to enforce that, or can you touch base a little on that?
It has been a growing trend to have either just park places or all city or county grounds more generally to be tobacco-free, including the use of electronic cigarettes. A lot of communities have done that through the policy route, some do it through ordinance, and I think sometimes that's a practical decision that they make. What is our capacity? And quite frankly, also, what is our interest or our law enforcement staff's capacity to actually stop, cite, and enforce someone? Something that is not necessarily a mandate, but when you adopt an ordinance, you're really saying that this is something that we are going to enforce versus a policy where it's not completely without teeth. It's something, though, that you expect people to abide by that themselves, and if they don't, perhaps, and they're asked to leave or to stop and they don't, that could lead to a trespass and an indirect consequence for that. But lots of people have done that. Like any policy, like any law, most people are going to just do what they're supposed to. And if we think of the context in tobacco control, about 14% of the population in Minnesota smokes or uses tobacco right now. So the majority of the people are going to abide by this law because it's not something that they normally do, right? But it's still a policy choice. When I drove here, there were speed limit signs, and I chose to follow them or not, right? There's always going to be that aspect of it. But we don't see people who adopt something repealing it because they're having too many issues with enforcement. Will there ever be issues? Yeah, possibly. But really no different than any of the other ordinances or policies that you as a community adopt.
We have my understanding is we have two businesses in town that allow vaping now. Can the ordinance have wording in such that we would not add a third or a fourth?
Yeah, you could, and there's a couple of ways that could be done. You could generally prohibit you could address the use of an electronic device in all public places, all places of employment, similar to the Clean Indoor Air Law. Right now, our state law, it defines smoking as using something that's lit or burned, and the way that these devices work, they're heated, and so it doesn't fall within that definition. There's a couple of exceptions. Places like here, you can't vape within a government-owned building. Minnesota or University, the MnSCU or U of M systems, you can't smoke there. Foster care, there's a few carves out, but it's not as broad. So you could adopt something that applies everywhere, and you could provide, and that could cover sampling or could not. Or you could do it through your point of sale regulations. You could grandfather in the two existing buildings or locations. You could create a new category of location. Vape shop or some terminology like that, and you could cap the number of licenses at 2, and that wouldn't allow anyone else to open up. There are options if you want to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Can you speak a little bit about the adult-only venues for sale? So like now, are you saying that then in grocery stores they would not be able to sell cigarettes, or is that, or
That's
how do you
correct.
define?
That's correct. Right now, our state laws have two contexts where there is, if you will, either an adult-only and or a tobacco-only restriction if you want to do something. For tobacco sampling, the Minnesota Clean Indoor Air Act does provide an exception for sampling, so long as 90% or more of the revenue generated from that facility is from tobacco and tobacco-related devices. And it actually has a door that leads to the outside. There's no age restriction for sampling purposes. And under our retail tobacco regulations, for those open displays, if you will, generally everything has to be behind the counter or in a lock case. I can't get to something without vendor assistance. There's an exception for that if a place is adult only. Minors are never allowed to enter at any time. And again, 90% of their revenue comes from these products. You can certainly use either of those frameworks or use them both together to create a restriction for flavors. And then a grocery store, because 5% perhaps of their revenue is from tobacco and tobacco-related sales, they would not be able to sell any flavored products. How you define flavor. It would essentially be the tobacco-only or cigar store or something like that, where essentially they might sell a few other things. Maybe they have, they sell soft drinks, or something of that nature. But essentially, the only reason you're going in there is because you want to buy a cigar or some pipe tobacco or something of that nature, e-cigarettes.
I think we'll have to follow up on that question, but what I'm trying to do is sort of check each one of the things that we talked about. We talked about, Minneapolis and St. Paul's ordinance on flavored cigarettes. We've talked about locations, and you're sort of talking about sampling, but that's the first thing you brought up. But before we move on, I want to talk a little bit about restrictions on advertising. Now, you used the term content neutral. So am I right that if we restricted the amount of advertising in a store that was selling cigars and electronic cigarettes, that would have to apply to every store?
More or
Right? It would have
less.
to be it would have to apply to the gift store as well as the cigarette store.
It depends how you do it within your sign code, but essentially, yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
We might not generally think about it when we think of the Constitution and freedoms of speech. You think of someone who wants to protest a war or do something of that nature. But it does apply to commercial speech as well. And when the government, city councils, any level, wants to restrict or regulate that content, they're held to a really high standard. And so a content neutral regulation, time, place, or manner, doesn't necessarily focus on the type of advertising that is on that window or whatever. It treats it all the same, and for usually a defensible purpose, you have that restriction. And St. Paul has this type of regulation, and one of the reasons that they did that was for public safety purposes. That there was a benefit for retail for the clerk to be able to see outside the store, to see what might be happening, what could be coming into the store, as well as law enforcement, anyone walking by a store to see what's going on. So yeah, just a focus, like if the idea of we're just going to ban tobacco advertising in our city. While there's a lot of public health reasons why we'd want to do that, it's a very, very high bar. It's one that's, you essentially have to show there's no other way than what we want to do. If there's a least restrictive means, you're supposed to use an alternative.
Thank you for discussing that.
Yes.
I think this fall, we had a lot of discussion here about the e-cigarettes and our concerns, and we had kind of a split vote back then. But one area that we had a very consistent vote was the fact of access of e-cigarettes to children and the marketing to children. I think that's one area that we all agreed we wanted to address in whatever policy we would put together. Can you talk a little bit about what you've done in that capacity, or how that's fit with, I know you kind of briefly mentioned some of your areas, but have you had some other cities that are really looking at that more specifically than other stuff?
Counselor, a lot of what communities have been doing for the past, before the past years, but almost as mandated, if you will, by that change in state law, is to really make sure that e-cigarettes are a clear component of the regulations that we have. Pre-existing regulations that we had in state law dealing with tobacco more generally, they dealt with how those products can be offered within the store, and how old you have to be to buy it, and that you have to have a license to sell them, that there needs to be a compliance check, and the new thing that it has to be in child-resistant packaging. A lot of it is to get to make sure that your regulations treat those products the same way that we do with tobacco products.
Okay.
And in regard to use, and the idea that the use of an electronic cigarette, it normalizes smoking. All right. Some of them look different. Some look significantly different. Some are blue and have blue tips and things like that. But it's the idea of renormalizing this for 20, for 30 years. Folks like the Lung Association, folks working for local public health departments, and folks sitting on councils have done a lot to try to make it so kids aren't really starting that they understand the harms, the education. This brings it back into the light. And people who start using those types of products, there is some studies. This is all really early because it's a new product, and scientific data, it takes time. But there is there's some studies, some information that says that there is a renormalization process, and that people move from that to wanting a higher nicotine fix will move to tobacco and things like that. The biggest thing really is, we have found, is to treat it the same way as other products. And where there is deficiencies, the biggest deficiency right now sir, is in regards to where you can use them. You can use them anywhere, unless a city council or a private business owner, him or herself, decides not to. I can use it in the cafe, I can use it in the bar, I can use it in your park, I can use it anywhere. So addressing where people can use these products is a significant opportunity that locals have to address how kids interact with it, beyond just getting it, but where they can use it and things of that nature.
So, I just want to follow up on that. So, one of the things that we could add to the state statute is to make it absolutely clear that cigarettes are not allowed in parks, nor are e-cigarettes.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Because there are certain, the public buildings, they can't use e-cigarettes.
That's
The
correct.
state law has taken care of that.
Correct.
But you're saying that the state law has not taken care of our parks. Is that, does I understand that, or?
Our state law, with a couple of exceptions, is specific to indoor areas.
Okay.
It really doesn't deal with outside. And it's really something that has to be done at the city or the county level.
Okay, I've got one, I'm just looking over my list here. This is another thing. You said one of the ways to limit children or younger people from trying these products is minimum product size and restricting coupons, so
Right.
cost is an issue. Can you talk a little bit about that as in terms of e-cigarette use?
Certainly. In tobacco control, cost or price is often considered king or queen, right? And if you can, through taxes, an individual pack of cigarettes, it's up there, right? Go to a gas station, it's, what is it, 7.5, depending on the product, 8, depends on the retailer.
Quarter?
It's more than the pocket change that most kids, and kid can be whatever age, but more than they can have access to, either if they want to try to buy it themselves or through someone else. But an individual cigar, things of that nature, they're cheap, right? They're inexpensive, and one of the moves is to raise the price. You could either raise the price by setting, again, a minimum. Lots of communities in Minnesota have a minimum for individual cigars. Federal law prohibits the sale of individual cigarettes. It restricts the sale of cigarettes in packages of less than 20. And lots of communities have have a loose use restriction in their city code. I apologize, I don't remember if yours does, but lots do. And what communities have done is they've expanded that definition of loosely for their purposes, and really to prevent people from taking a larger pack of something to break it down to sell it individually. You can't do that, as well as to set a minimum price for an individual cigar. You can't sell real cheap cigars, individual cigars, but if it has a price higher than $2 or $2.60, or I think $2.60 right now is the current highest price in Minnesota, you can sell that, and that helps, but it kind of creates a loophole as well. You can't sell an individual cigar for less than $2.50, but that doesn't stop someone from selling 2 for 99 cents or 2 for $1.05 or whatever else it might be. What about a half dozen communities in the state have done, and there is a lot of momentum in this, is to set either a minimum pack or minimum price or minimum pack and price restriction. They'll say that you can't sell packs of cigars for under, so they set some number, for less than blank amount per cigar. All right, and then they also say that price you can't use coupons or discounts or something like that to reduce the price lower. That's your floor. If you can use a coupon, but that coupon can't dip it past that threshold. You can say you can't sell packs can't sell cigars in packs of 5 or less. The idea that the more that you have, the market rate's going to raise that price, and so communities have done that. I'm not aware much, and certainly it's something that we will look into. I'm not aware of too many communities that have done that specifically for electronic cigarettes. A lot of them are priced. There's really 2 forms. There's a disposable form, a closed system. When you're done using it, you throw it away. They do vary, but it's more like a couple of packs. It's supposed to be the equivalent to a pack or a couple of packs. All right, so they kind of sell them for 5, 6, something like that. Then there are open systems, right, where you refill them. You buy those juices, you fill it, you charge your battery, and you use it longer. And I don't have a good gauge on what the minimum price for some of those individual liquids or juices are, but perhaps there's an opportunity there for when people are selling those vials to perhaps set a minimum price for something like that.
Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, But I believe that some of the the things that younger smokers or younger users are being enticed into are not only the flavored liquid nicotine, but the flavored sweet cigars. Is that right?
That is right. Yes. Yes.
So by creating sort of a minimum product size or restricting coupons or that sort of thing to raise the cost, that could apply to those sweet little cigarillos as well as an e-cigarette.
Tutti frutti flavors.
Yeah, right.
Yes, it
right.
could. And-
Swisher Sweets.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, it
okay.
certainly could. And I mean, if you want to think of the context of this, lots of different options. And again, like I said, I'll leave some booklets that kind of go into them in kind of a neat detail. Something to think about is beyond what you've already thought about, perhaps. It's not really that there's one golden regulation, one golden option that's going to cover all this. If you decide to do flavors, or if you decide to do menthol, or if you raise the age, the more you can. The idea behind that is if you can get people to push the initiation date. The closer you get to 25, more likely they're not going to start, or if they start, they're going to be able to quit. None of these are the solution. It's almost like a stew, right? Based on your community, based on your interest, you throw things in the stew, and collectively, those are the things that help with your environment.
Counselor Mack, did you have a proposal on how you wanted to move this forward?
I guess I'm kind of leaving it up to as the council as a
I didn't
whole
know if
here.
you had-
Maybe we can put a couple ideas out here. I mean, if we want to resolve it tonight, we could, or do we want to get together as a committee and say we want to put these 20 things together, or?
I guess one of my concerns is that I'd like to be a little clearer about what problem we're trying to address in our particular city before we decide to ask the city attorney to move forward. So I would propose that maybe we have a committee of two sort of look into what are the most important problems that we need to address. And then we can, look over the materials that we've been provided and say, okay, well, if it is the low cost for entree little sweet cigarettes, well, then we should move forward. Or if it has something to do with sampling, then it would move forward. Or if it has something to do with advertising or location, then we could move forward. So that what I would propose is a committee of two to look into what problems we need to address.
What if we did a work session as the council first? And then they'd have more input, I think.
And then maybe
from
narrow it
everybody.
down from there
That's
after a
fine.
work session.
Right.
Put everybody's thoughts together.
That I'm okay with that too.
Because we might come up with more than just,
Right.
Right, and then that would give us an opportunity to study the materials that we've been given, so we can discuss
And we can
that.
invite the city attorney to the work session and
Yeah, right.
then we can
Right,
rate them
right.
on our priority if it's, we want
Right.
to, are we looking for children or,
Right.
where are we at?
What's our targets? Yeah.
Right, and
And
as far as the, I'm not sure if we want to consider location, zoning, or that sort of thing, maybe because so many of us have sat on planning and zoning, we can think about that ourselves. I don't know if we want to,
Yeah.
We'll let the city manager decide who should be on the work session. But-
I guess we got two different things here. You were thinking work session. Charlie was just thinking as a whole council we should get together.
Yes, right.
So-
But if we have the city attorney there, if,
Yeah, yeah.
if, for example, we decided that the biggest and we don't have this problem, but if we decided that the biggest problem that we have is that they're selling sweet cigarillos right next to the middle school,
Sure.
perhaps that would be a zoning issue. But I don't think that is, but I think it's something that we should discuss, and we should have some familiarity with the zoning rules before that, but perhaps we all do since we've
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think we also maybe have some people from our general public that could maybe be invited to this work session too, because they're in the, we have a medical professional here. We
Sure,
got
what are the
our
problems?
public health person was going to be here, but she's out ill. She said any
Yeah.
committee or anything you guys do, I want to be part of it. Dr. Ann said she would be part of it.
Right. So we know what
So-
problems we're facing.
So are we looking at a work session, or are we looking at putting together a committee? I think
We're looking at
I'm
both
saying a
of them.
council work session.
the council
Only.
just have a little work session to get some direction on it first, and then
Narrow it down.
narrow it down. of
Because we
really
don't know
what
where we're
wanna
coming
do.
from yet,
Right.
my opinion.
And the committee could then take it from there, is what you're thinking, and
A committee,
We
or
can
if we
decide
feel
that
at
at
a
the
time.
work session, where we
Yeah.
want to go with it from there. Proceed with it, drop it, whatever.
Right. After the work session, we'll make a decision.
on how we want to proceed forward. I think
Right,
we-
but we'll have a lot more information.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
because all of a sudden, if you start adding too many people, then it's just going to explode again. I think we need to kind of decide what do we want to get out of it, and then if we feel the need to add
Yeah, our focus.
our focus.
Yep. Half
so the medical professionals maybe could give us their concerns in writing or something prior to that. Is that what you're
If they
thinking?
want- Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we could share that.
Areas that they feel we should target?
If
I think that would
somebody
be
out
good.
there has a real strong
Yeah.
feeling,
Yeah.
you know,
Let's
Okay.
not
talk to your
l-
council person.
Yeah.
Good.
Or anybody else from the general public that wants to view in, including our vapor stores. I mean, we gotta look at both sides of these issues too.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I move
Need a
we
motion?
I move that we table this matter to a work session so that we can have an opportunity to study the materials that we've been given and investigate during that work session, what problems we should be addressing with any changes in our regulation.
I'll second that.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
what kind of information are you leaving us?
A general overview of these point-of-sale strategies, a little description on what they are, and also from a legal perspective, kind of a red light, green light type susceptibility to challenge, things of that nature.
Can you get us some copies of other ordinances that you've helped write? I'd like to see those at this work session.
I think
Or
that would
before
be
the work
useful.
session.
Mhm.
Can you
You
do
know.
that?
Provide copies of ordinances, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for coming
Thank you,
down.
Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4B, consider approval or deny a project proposed by, excuse me, that one's been deleted, I guess.
all right, good.
We'll go on to 5.
We may want to just talk about that. He's decided to pull that project. He's going to move on with some other areas of bike safety and stuff, so.
And he's got plenty
Moving
to
on.
do.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, we'll go on to 5A. Consider resolution accepting donations to the New Ulm Police Department to be used for the purpose of early childhood family education safety fair bicycle helmet program.
I'll offer the resolution to waive the reading.
We got a motion and a second off the resolution. Waived reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz.
Yes.
Counselor Webster.
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 5B, consider resolution declaring official intent of the City of New Ulm to reimburse expenditures with the proceeds of the tax instrument general
Put me down.
obligation permanent improvement revolving funds bond series 2016.
I'll offer the resolution to waive the reading.
Second.
We got a motion and a second off the resolution. Waived reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no.
Resolution.
Oh, sorry, resolution. Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz. Counselor Webster.
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 5C, consider resolution approving the recommendation 2015 year-end transfers and encumbrances.
I'll offer that resolution, waive the reading.
A second.
We got a motion and a second off the resolution, waived reading.
Should we go through these, or are they just,
It's run of the mill, but
Yeah,
if you
pretty-
want me to
there's
go
only
through them, I
three.
can.
yeah, okay.
It-
It's the usual.
they're in
It's
front
the
of us.
usual, we didn't spend that money yet.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Any more discussion? Finance Officer, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz. Counselor Webster.
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 5D, consider resolution declaring the support of the Minnesota bonding funding for local parks and trails in greater Minnesota.
I'll offer that resolution, waive the reading.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second off resolution, waive the reading. Any more discussion?
Oh,
Seeing none? Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz.
Yes.
Counselor Webster.
yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 5E, consider resolution authorize overnight temporary tent camping at Harmon Park for a Bike Across Minnesota organization on the 9th of August 18th to 19th, 2016.
I'll offer that resolution.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Oh, another fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Another bike thing.
Yes, yeah.
Seeing no more? Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz.
Yes.
Counselor Webster.
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 5F, consider request from the Career Expo Committee relating to the rental fee for the Civic Center for 10th grade career fair event.
I apologize, I did not, I was not able to attend the Park and Rec Commission, where they recommended waiving the entire fee for this event, but it's some,
Schmitz is here.
yeah, it's,
I also serve on this committee through the, as the chamber rep, and it kind of came up in our committee a month or so ago, and people were asking, well, why are we charging a fee when it's an event that does not bring in any fees? The schools are not charged anything. We invite, there's 350-some kids that come from all the different schools in our area to learn about jobs in our community where we want them to come back and work and stay in our community. So there was a discussion about asking whether or not that fee could be reduced or eliminated, and Mr. Offerheide, who's here, wrote a letter for that request, and it went to the Park and Rec. My understanding, they recommended a full waiver, which is very nice. And now it's come here.
I guess I have a comment on this. I look at this as kind of similar to what we do with the Youth Network New Ulm program, where students, they can only take 25 students a year, and they go to all of these businesses, see the jobs, see the inner working of these businesses. And we're only allowed 25 students a year, and we always have more than enough applicants, and not all of them get to do that. But this is one day where they can have all of these places in one area. And I feel we contribute to the Youth Network New Ulm program. This would be kind of our way to contributing to those students that can't take advantage of that Network New Ulm. So I would be in favor of waiving this fee.
well, and I told Commissioner Schultz before we opened that, a couple of us were at the League of Minnesota Cities event where the focus was how to create a lovable city, how to make people love your city. And one of the things that the presenter did was, put up this picture of these surly teenagers with their skateboards and looking kind of grumpy. And then he said, now, see these people? In 10 years, these are the people you want living in your city, and they will remember how you treated them. So I think it is important that we support our youth. And
Yep,
I'm
and
really
showcase the
for this.
businesses and the opportunities that are
Right.
here.
Right.
My understanding is I'm new to this particular committee, and I know that they were talking today, we had a meeting right before this meeting, that they have plan to have over 50 businesses from our community represented at this event, and they already have over 24 signed up, and it's still February, so it's very popular. They're not going to have a main speaker this year. They're going to really just concentrate on the jobs. They have 4 different categories of the different career areas that the kids can look at. They're going to give out some gifts.
Great.
So it's a great day for the kids in our community. It's almost always sophomores, but I think Humphrey's bringing in their juniors because they didn't come last year for some reason. So that's a little bit of an exception. But there's 350 kids that are going to come and spend a couple hours learning about careers and jobs in our community. I think it's a very good event that we should be able to help with.
Yeah, I support it. I think it's wonderful. I was approached by an individual at 3M and asked, why do we pay for this? And I said, I'm looking into it, and got back to him that it was going to be brought up here, so I would
Bill,
support.
am I missing anything?
Oh. Thank you.
I believe Councilor Schultz has done a wonderful job with this. My name is Bill Alftredi. I live at 1821 Willow Road here in New Ulm. Been involved in businesses in New Ulm my entire life and been involved in the career fair for probably 4 years now. It's really a great experience for these kids to come through. They really get some hands-on experience. We have a couple schools that come in as partners with businesses. For example, I'm with MR Paving and Mathewitz Construction. We bring in Central Lakes College, and they bring down their simulator so the kids can sit down and they run a simulated backhoe, and they get to scoop dirt and dump it at a dump truck. And then there's some other schools that come down with some of the manufacturing operations here in town and talk about mechatronics, and they talk about hydraulics, and they have these simulator boards. So it's a really great opportunity for some hands-on for these kids to see. They get to talk to us and some of the other people who are actually involved. We can explain you can make a living and a career here in New Ulm. You don't have to leave and go to the Twin Cities. It's a great place to live and a great place to work. So it's really a win-win for everybody.
Sounds great, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
I'll move we waive the entire fee for the annual 10th grade career fair event.
I'll second that, but I do have a question, that we're waiving the fee for the event. They still rent tables and they still rent drapes. That's still included in this or not included in this? I wanted to clarify that. There was a question at our meeting about that as well. So they rent drapery and they rent tables, chairs. Is that included in this or not included in this?
Tom Schmitz, Park and Recreation Department. My understanding is the estimated $824.50 fee for 2016 includes everything.
Everything, okay.
That's fine with me.
That's
Waive it
your-
all.
Waive it all.
Yep.
I mean,
Give it-
if
give-
we were in a situation, and we've been in these situations where every penny counted, I might feel differently, but I think that we'll just waive the fee. I'm okay with that. That's
Yep,
my motion,
yep.
you're okay?
I just want to make sure that was clear because there was, people weren't sure on that at our meeting, so.
I just have a comment. You know, I'm always concerned when we waive fees for certain events. Do you see any precedents that we're setting for any other events that might be like this? I mean, I want to be very cautious of, we don't just waive fees for,
Well, I
Did
think
that
we have
come
to
up?
do them on the case-by-case basis.
Right.
Something like this for the school, I think everybody agrees here, it's something we really need to do. If it's, we'll just say maybe a private organization or whatever, we look at everything
It's a
as it
different
comes in,
story,
yeah.
yeah.
Sure, and if, for example, someone wanted to, focus totally on seniors in high school and medical careers in New Ulm, well, it's so similar that we'd
Right.
probably, we couldn't say no because it's because it was so similar. But if someone wanted to demonstrate, fishing techniques or something, it might be different, so.
Or
Oh, where they
seminar
might
for
be charging
city
per
attorney.
person to come in the door. and
Right.
We're not charging it. There's no fees anywhere. There's no,
And it's
And
kids.
nobody's property.
Right.
It's
there
just,
is no
Right.
other event, Tom,
But
that you
there's a
know
lot
of
of-
that would be similar to this?
No, I'm not familiar with any other event, and I think just, a couple things to think about would be the inclusivity aspect versus exclusivity, and the broad spectrum public aspect as opposed to private or, a narrow focus program.
Thank you.
Great. Any more?
Thank you.
Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
I
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5G, consider resolution to approve the decertification of the TIF District RD6 Shells Brewery.
They've
Anybody
paid
have it?
everything
Reg?
off.
No longer being
Okay.
needed. It's
Okay.
unnecessary.
Offer the
Recommend that it be
resolution to
decertified.
approve the
great.
decertification of the TIF district at Shell's Brewery.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second off the resolution, waived reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher,
yes.
Counselor Mack,
yes.
Counselor Schultz.
Yes.
Counselor Webster.
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 5H, consider resolution approving the MnDOT Office of Aeronautics grant contract number 1001027 for the airport maintenance operation.
I'll offer that resolution, waive the reading.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing
There's
none?
nothing
Finance-
unusual here at all.
No, huh?
No, Mr. President, this is just routine maintenance. If we replace an overhead door motor or something of that nature, the state will reimburse us 3/4 of the cost, up to approximately $51,000 per year for a 2-year term. It's a
Okay,
pretty good deal.
thank you. Any more discussion? Seeing none? Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz.
Yes.
Counselor Webster.
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. 5I, consider resolution approving the request from Kraft Heinz Food Company to utilize a portion of the city-owned property at 1526 Bridge Street for a temporary contract parking, direct the city attorney to prepare a license agreement for this purpose, and authorize the city manager, finance director to sign the agreement on behalf of the city of New Ulm.
I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading.
I'll second.
We got a motion, a second off the resolution, waived reading, any discussion?
Are there any issues we could, I mean, we're just moving forward on this expansion project, right? Is there
Correct.
anything we should
Correct.
be
This is,
focusing on?
this is one aspect of it. I've spoken with Mr. Schnobrick, and they're just looking for the use of the city-owned property on a temporary basis to be parking vehicles, and it is appropriate that we have a license agreement to clarify what their responsibilities are.
Good.
Okay. Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz.
Yes.
Counselor Webster.
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 5J, consider resolution approving the city of New Ulm to enter into a joint powers agreement with the Minnesota Department of Public Safety Bureau of Criminal Apprehension for the purpose of assessing court and criminal justice data.
I'll offer this
Access.
resolution, waive the reading.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to offer resolution, waived reading.
Every
More
city and
discussion?
county is doing this, so we just did this at the county today, too.
Okay.
All right. No more discussion? Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz.
Yes.
Counselor Webster.
Yes.
President Schmitz.
Yes, motion carries. Item 5K, first reading of ordinance number 16-008, fifth series, amending section 2.50 of the city code of the city of New Ulm to permit sale of natural gas outside the corporate limits of the city. Roger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance number 16-008, fifth series, City of New Ulm, Brown County, Minnesota. An ordinance amending section 2.50 of the city code of the city of New Ulm to prevent sales of natural gas outside of the corporate limits of the city. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of New Ulm, Section 1, that Section 2.50 Subdivision 11 of the City Code of the City of New Ulm is hereby amended to add the following. Subdivision F, such premises may be connected to and be served by a city-owned gas utility without being annexed to the city. The owner of any such premises shall be responsible for supplying the city with all necessary easements and paying such portion of the cost of extending such service as may be determined by the city. Anyone receiving such services outside of the corporate limits of the city must specifically agree to be bound by all applicable provisions of the city code and public utilities regulations, including but not limited to regulations and rates adopted thereunder, and the right of the city and the PUC to discontinue service pursuant to the city code, applicable law, and public utilities regulations. Section 2, that the ordinance shall take effect and be enforced 30 days from and after its adoption, approval, and publication.
Thank you. Now we'll go on to the addend, we have an addenda item. So entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
I move we suspend the rules so we can hear the addendum.
Second.
We have a second? We got a motion and a second to suspend the rules, go on to addendum. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. The addendum is for new business. Consider authorizing the city manager to sign a purchase agreement on behalf of the city of New Ulm for 30-plus acres of land for the purpose of the proposed site of the New Ulm National Guard Army and Field Maintenance Shop. Mr. Brummins?
Mr. President, City Councilors, the June 16, 2015 authorization of the City Council was for, to allow staff to pursue land acquisition activities as directed by the City Council for the Minnesota Army National Guard armory and field maintenance shop. The city attorney and myself had discussions with the property owner, Steve Sampson, on the property that was identified by the National Guard representatives. Out of that, we have prepared a purchase agreement in the amount calculated on 30.35 acres at $36,000 an acre. Now, we may have to round up or round down, so it's going to be very close to 30.35, but it might be 30.38 or something like that. But the fact remains, it's going to be real close to that number. And that Mr. Sampson has reviewed the purchase agreement and is, I guess, prepared on his end to carry forward on the sale to the city of New Ulm. The sale must occur prior to, well, we've got it set up to occur on or before June 6th of 2016, which gives us the month of June, basically, to get the land transferred, to the state of Minnesota for this particular project. It amounts to, I think it's just under $1.1 million is what the actual, $1,056,000 or something like that. It's been a while since I looked at the actual total, but it is very close to the dollar figure that we had stated at the June 16 meeting. We anticipate 1.1, 1.2 is what we were guessing, and so we're just slightly underneath that for actual purchase price. So that's what the staff has done up to this point in time. So we'd be looking for the city council to authorize city manager to sign that purchase agreement on behalf of the city so that we can acquire the land prior to the deadline.
I move that we authorize the city manager to sign a purchase agreement on behalf of the city for the property in question for the proposed future site of the Armory and Field Maintenance Shop.
I'll second the motion.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I just have a hard time with that price, but I know we've talked about it. I gulp at that. I just gotta, someone's gonna make $1 million.
So.
Oh, yeah, it needs to be a resolution.
For the resolution, waive the reading.
There is a comment on the map, A and B. Can you explain what that comment A is?
Yeah, A is more important than B,
Okay.
but you need B to get to A. B is what we would continue to own because that's kind of right-of-way. So we'd want to own the right-of-way. B gets us in approximately, I don't remember the exact number, but approximately 200 feet into the property, which then gives us an access point for A to have a road go in it. And at that point, the city will own B, the state will own A, and B will, in all likelihood, as you notice on the map, says future right-of-way, would extend south to then go to the back part of the property like any access road would.
I guess my concern, what I'm questioning about the 30 versus the 25 acres, that comment.
Well, when the National Guard first contacted me, they talked about 25 acres, and when they made their presentation to the city council, they said 30. And in discussions with them afterwards, they're looking at their facility. If you look at the lower section of the map that shows the kind of like the L shape, that's the field maintenance shop. One of those legs is actually being constructed, and I think they could probably get by with the 25 acres at that point in time. But their concept is to actually put the second wing on it sometime in the future, which then, if you're going to have that much more maintenance shop, you need that much more storage area for your heavy equipment. And if you go down to the current field maintenance shop, you'll see all the tracked vehicles and things like that are parked down there. They would be consolidating all of those from Mankato to New Ulm, and they just need more space.
And Anoka too, wasn't it?
What's that?
Wasn't Anoka as well?
It's human. Rochester, I think, is closing.
Well,
the field
people are coming down, but the actual equipment the heavy equipment is actually found from Worthington to Mankato. Rochester's members of our battalion are related to the medical field, which stands to reason. But people from Anoka will be assigned here, but the equipment is actually located more on the Worthington to Rochester corridor. So they're just combining everything from the east to New Ulm and combining and allowing the equipment to the west to be able to be maintained here. So, like I say, they originally came in for 25 acres, and it didn't take them long to say, we would like to have 30 acres. And I was not able to have them change their mind on that. I mean, I wanted to keep it as, what was necessary. And they came back and said, no, we really need the 30. Now, on the plus side, you could say the negative side is that we've got 30 acres when Mankato actually had 17 acres, and that was just for the armory. Although the armory only sits on 10 acres, the other 7 acres are across the road. So we are acquiring much more land than other cities, even larger than us, like Mankato, have to provide for their armory. So I think that will be part of the mix when we talk about the existing field maintenance shop down by the South Park and also the armory here. I think that can be part of the mix. Colonel Herkey, made that comment when he was here that, understand that this is a bigger parcel than other cities would have to provide, and that'll just that will have to be part of the discussion when we get to that point of who gets what buildings for what price. Because they will offer both facilities to the city and New Ulm first. And then if the city doesn't accept them, then they'll offer it to the schools. And if the school don't accept them, they'll offer them to the county. And if the county don't accept them, they'll put them up for public auction. Like the old armory in Mankato was done that way, and somebody bought it and they developed that into an office complex. And so there's a stair-step approach to this.
So
we were offered first chance.
We're offered first chance of purchasing that? It
Correct.
doesn't automatic, because we gave them the land, it doesn't automatically come back to us.
That's part of the discussions, that they're not willing to commit to what that purchase price is. It could be $1, it could be whatever. Maybe they say, we really think this is a great deal, and the only way we can sell this is at fair market value. That part we haven't discussed because they're pretty close to probably 3 years of getting into the field maintenance shop. They want to live in the existing field maintenance shop until such time as the armory is constructed, and the armory will be constructed approximately 2 to 3 years after the field maintenance shop. So the discussion is close to 6 to 7 years out as to what the price tag of those buildings will be. And, I'd like to have it all neat and tidy, but that's not the process.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess I got a question on the map here. If we're just south of there, is that just more farm field?
Correct.
So and that parcel's owned by Mr. Thompson also?
Correct.
So
The very edge
if this is
of the
a one-time
Thompson
deal,
property is what was proposed for the potential future crosswind runway location. So, Steve, at some point in time will come to the city council and we'll have to talk to Mr. Thompson about some additional land down there. But other than that, it's just farm field.
Okay. But, we're doing this a one-time deal that we're buying land for a new National Guard. But in 5 years, they come and say they want another 10 acres. Are we obligated to buy the land for them then if we've already,
No, we're not
we're not
obligated.
because we did this?
Technically, we're not obligated to do this, but
But-
if we don't do it,
Yeah.
there's likely a city in close proximity that will.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have the chance of saying no.
Okay.
I think if we do it large enough now and go to the 30, we probably don't have to cross that bridge for another 30 years, hopefully, so. I think that we need to do it. I think in the long run, it's gonna be the best thing, because regardless, anytime something gets built, you'll never have enough property, so I think we won't regret it.
Puts another anchor out on that end of town too, so.
So, do we have a motion?
I offered the resolution.
Or resolution, sorry?
Yep.
Waive the reading.
Okay, any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Webster? President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. We'll go on to item 6A, but item 6A is to consider a motion to proceed with a closed session to evaluate the performance of the city manager, Brian Grummons. According to Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3A and 13D.01 subdivision 3. Got that all down. Anyway, we're gonna adjourn the meeting and go on to the performance evaluation
All right, good.
at this time. So no more business, meeting adjourned.